you know me. Everybody say that they know me, they only see me on the cover of a Vogue and they clone me. We cannot be friends cause I like being lonely. I'm a boss, tell them not today. Swerving on these chickens, cluck out my lane. I'm a boss.
All right, so I know you as No Idea Daddy Blog, but I'm assuming that was not your God-given name. Do you want to tell us your God-given name, or do you just go by like Daddy or No Idea, or like how does that work?
Oh man, well, when you said you go by Daddy, that sounds incredibly. There's a little scandal there. No, the name I was blessed with is Clint Edwards, and I on Instagram, which is new to me relatively, although I have been able to kind of build an audience there. But I'm primarily, I guess, a daddy blogger, but I have a number of books out, and I have a lot of people on Facebook that follow me, like 300-something thousand, and that's cool. But Facebook kind of is difficult. They don't like to work with people the way they used to. So I moved over to Instagram, and now I just feel like I'm finally in with the millennials, and that's a good feeling.
You're cool now. You've made it.
Yeah. I think the term is Gucci. Gucci is the term, maybe. I don't even know. That's probably dead. You could have. I don't even know.
I don't know what the term is because I am also not a millennial. I wish I was a millennial sometimes, but I'm not. But so you've made it. You've made it in with the in crowd. So Instagram and the millennials is kind of where it's at. I hear also. So you got into writing books. How? Can you kind of explain a little bit about that?
Yeah, I can, but it's kind of boring. I mean, it should be more exciting than it is. I studied English as a college, and I have a master's in it, which my parents. Well, my dad didn't care. He was in jail. But my mom was kind of like, what are you going to do with that? And I just told her homeless because it was easier, and that's what she wanted to hear. And so I guess the goal was always to write. And I got done with grad school, and I published in all these literary journals that nobody read. And I tried to get a book published, and I couldn't. It was really frustrating. And I got rejected. I have a whole spreadsheet of shame. There's like literally hundreds of agents and publishers in there that rejected me after grad school with this kind of like literary memoir project. So I was like, man, this sucks. And I was a stay-at-home dad at the time. It was like a summer because I was working at a university. I had a 9-month contract. My wife was finishing school. And I just needed to do something else. So I put the dust off this old blog that I created as like a college project my first year of grad school. And I wrote this long kind of ranty essay about being a stay-at-home dad. I want to say it was read by like 1,000 people, and my head just exploded. I was like, 1,000 people read that? I mean, the circulation of the last journal I was in was called the North Dakota Quarterly, which I'm confident you subscribe to. I think the circulation was 200, And I was like, what? And so I just said, I'm going to write every day on this thing, 5 days a week for a year, and let's just see what happens. And, I created a Facebook page around it and a Twitter page. I still don't understand Twitter either, but somehow I have people there too. But, by the end of that year, I'd written for the New York Times and I'd written for the Washington Post. And I had this post go viral, and I ended up with Good Morning America at my house, which was like so awkward. Like if Good Morning America comes over to your house, you just don't. Because it's really weird. They just kind of follow you around. They were at my house for like 8 hours.
Oh, wow.
I think there was maybe 3 to 5 minutes I was actually on the show. And people still talk about it, but it's really weird. I don't think it's as bad as if Netflix approaches you to do a documentary about your life, but it's awkward. But anyways, I decided to I was tried to publish a collection of humorous essays, and agents were still rejecting me. So I self-published my first book with like a Kickstart, and that worked. And then I was done with traditional publishing for like a year or two. And then I finally got connected with Page Street, and they're distributed by Macmillan. And they apparently saw something in me. They've been publishing my books ever since. So I just finished up another manuscript with them. That's a book of all of my fatherly fails, and it'll be coming out in October.
So what's the title of that?
It's going to be called Fatherish.
Fatherish. I like it.
Fatherish. Yeah.
Fatherish. So, if I was to write my motherly fails, I don't think I could fit that in just a book. It would be like one of those like ridiculously large. manuscripts that nobody can even lift up.
Well, I had to be selective, you know.
Yeah.
Sections were cut,
Yeah.
but
names were changed to protect identities.
Names were definitely changed. Descriptions were changed.
Yeah.
You know, it's like suddenly, oh yeah, he was missing an eye. You know, just so people don't know that was my next door neighbor.
Yep. Yep. So that's funny. So how many kids do you have?
I have 3 children.
Okay, and their ages are.
So I have a 13-year-old son who will shortly you will hear him wandering because I'm current. So we're under the COVID-19 stay-at-home thinger, right? And I am in a closet right now. That's where I work now. It's a large closet, and I've told people it's a home office, but it's a closet.
There you go.
And it's my son's closet, and so he will be coming in here shortly to do homework because he's being a butthole about doing his homework. And
as they all are right now.
Oh my gosh! We should change it to Yell School instead of Homeschool. I'm telling you,
it's bad.
Terrible.
And I know lots of people that homeschool, and I tried it. I was telling somebody this the other day. I tried to homeschool. My 10-year-old is autistic, so whenever he started school, kindergarten wasn't too bad because, it's very basic what they had to do. By the time he started getting in the first grade, I was kind of getting nervous because I'm like, okay, I don't know what I'm doing. I'm not a teacher by any stretch of the imagination. So by second grade, I'm like, okay, this is not going to work for me. But I tried the whole homeschooling thing with him, and then I got the bright idea because I got on Pinterest and thought it would seem like an amazing idea to go ahead and just homeschool all the kids because, it was going so well with only the one that I thought I'd make it so much better by bringing them all home because we could do it together because Pinterest convinced me that would be a great idea. It was not a great idea. It was terrible. And so I still have like PTSD from trying to homeschool. So when I found out that this was going to be a thing, I was like, oh my God, I can't do this again. So I'm pretty much the one going, I don't want to do this. And even more than my kids. I've actually talked to a couple of the principals and I'm like, how much do they actually have to do with this? What's the requirements here to pass? Because that's my goal at this point. I can't do it. I'm just, it's bad.
Oh yeah. Yeah. It's been a rough transition. But I will admit he's getting a lot more done with me micromanaging him, but I've got to do my job, outside. Writing is not like it's like decent part-time income. I do work at a university normally. Anyways, but back to your earlier question about how many kids I have. So I've got my son. He's the oldest. He's 13. And then I have Nora, who's 10. And she's a nice kid, smiles a lot. She's very casual with her personal hygiene, though. So we're working that one out. And then I have Aspen, who is 5. And she is like raising a wild honey badger. She's just, if she were the first, she could have been our last. That's the joke. That we say when she's not around.
Wow. I say that stuff to my kids' faces. I feel like it builds character. So I think that, if you
they're gonna, if someday they actually are interested in anything I've ever done, they will read it in my book.
Yeah, there you go.
But that's a long shot that they would actually be interested in something I did.
No, my kids think I'm like the dumbest person on the planet. It's funny because I'll tell them to do something, and I've had I always tell people that I never really knew what I wanted to be when I grew up, so I tried lots of things. So my resume looks completely bipolar, and so I have different various education backgrounds and random certifications and stuff. And one of those is as a personal trainer. I've worked as a personal trainer for years and years and years. Well, my daughter was wanting to, reach some type of fitness goal. So I'm like, okay, totally. I got this. I can do this. I write this stuff up. She's like, you don't know what you're talking about. And I'm like, listen, I've done this for 20 years. So instead she's getting on, Instagram and following these Instagram people. And I'm sitting there, with my qualifications going, just love me. I can do this. I got this. But she thinks I'm dumb. So instead she's following somebody that I don't even know who's telling her what to do, which is kind of actually the opposite of what I would tell her to do. So it's probably why she loves it. But okay, so you've got your honey badger. I feel like I've got the raw end of the deal on that one because if I had to list my kids, and I love them and they're great in their own little ways, but there's only one of them that I would say is super good. They're out of 7, and those odds are not really good in my favor.
Well, you've got to understand, with each kid you have, your chances of having a dud goes up. I guarantee one of the 3 here. My chance of getting all 3 of these kids out and then, going to college and getting married and staying in a successful marriage and being, not failing the launch is unlikely. And I do look across my kids and think to myself, I wonder which one's going to be the dud. You know,
Yeah.
I'm curious. And it's hard to make that prediction because they change regularly. And I'm confident that my parents thought I was a dud. I have no doubt in my mind that they thought that I was destined for prison. So I'm glad that I was able to buck that prediction for them.
That's awesome. So do you have siblings?
Oh, that's a complicated question, Maria.
Yeah. Not a road we want to go down.
Well, no, it's not that. It's just like people ask that question. I don't know. So my dad, he died. He died from drug addiction, and he died divorcing his fourth wife. There, he's on his fourth marriage, and my mom is on her third marriage, which she gets really mad when I mention that in like the New York Times.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
But it's like, it shaped who I am and my understanding of marriage. It's like, well, did you have to tell everybody I was on my third marriage? I'm like, well, yeah, I did.
It sold. Yes. Because it sells. And it does.
So,
everything shapes who you are.
Oh, yeah. I mean, and that's, anyway, so I have one full blood brother, and I have a half sister and a half brother that I talk to relatively regularly. My half sister I'm pretty close with, but then I just have this litany of step siblings that I don't even know what to call them anymore, and it goes on into the eternities.
That's a lot. I have my parents actually are still together. Now the jury is out on whether that actually should be the case, but we won't even go there. But I'm the oldest of four, and I definitely I know you can sit psychologically look at birth order and stuff, and I definitely fall into that firstborn birth order kind of psychological view that I was the overachiever. And but it's funny because it was random overachieving, because I was also very ADHD, still am. I never was diagnosed. My brother is 2 years younger than me, and he was diagnosed. And that's the big family joke, is he was diagnosed as a teenager because he was literally flunking all of his classes. And they thought he had a learning disability. And they tested him, and his IQ was just through the charts. It was above genius level. So he likes to throw it in my face that he's a genius, and I like to throw it in his face that nobody ever thought I was stupid enough to check mine. So that's kind of our little family joke. But yeah, I just kind of hopped to thing to thing to thing to thing to thing, forever. Actually, I just feel like I'm just now done hopping, and I'm old now, so I'm just too tired to jump anymore. But for the longest time, I was definitely a jumper. So the idea that you've got a master's degree in just one thing, that's pretty awesome, because added up all my shit together.
Wow. I mean, it does sound nice when you say I have a master's degree and you put it all in a package.
Yeah.
But it was a meandering. So my bachelor's is a Bachelor of Science in English with emphasis in creative writing and a minor in power line technology. I wanted to be a power lineman because when I started college, I didn't know how to type, and I'd never read a novel or anything. So it's kind of weird that I ended up writing and going into books. In fact, my wife taught me how to type when we were dating, which is beautiful of her. And it sounds really sweet when you say it that way, but I'm sure there's some way that it, if taken the wrong way, it just looks like a manipulation. But she, when we first started dating, I would handwrite my papers because I couldn't type, and then she couldn't read them because my handwriting, my spelling was so bad. And so she started typing them, and I would read them. And those were some of our first dates. Which is hot, when you think about it. That was just,
that could be another The Notebook, or like Ghost, when they're making the little sculpture. It could be with a typewriter.
But we're writing sociology papers. That's hot.
Well, I mean, it's all on how the writer script it. You gotta use your imagination. I could see that being very romantic and romanticized. Yeah, it's funny you said power lineman. My dad actually is a power lineman, and so is my husband. So
interesting.
Very well versed in that world. Yeah, they're still alive.
That's very good.
Yeah, and actually my husband just got back yesterday. He was out of town in West Virginia because they had some power outages, in West Virginia. So yes, I'm very well versed in that world. As a daughter of a power lineman, you can't drive down any road without knowing way too much about every line and every transformer and everything. It was terrible. And then my husband got into the same profession. And I get to do it all over again, for the rest of my life until I die. So that's where we're at.
Well, I know, I got my associate's degree, and my stepdad was a power lineman, and I did work for the power company long enough to realize I didn't want to die. And I realized that it's like this fine line of people that do it. They have to be smart enough not to get killed, but still stupid enough to do it because it is incredibly dangerous. I want to say I worked for a power company 6 months as an apprentice groundsman sort of thing.
Mm-hmm. That was enough.
I almost got killed a dozen times. And,
oh, yeah.
And part of that is I was not smart enough to not get killed, obviously. There were so many times, I can remember times of them just, Clint, you almost killed yourself just then. I was like, I did?
Yeah.
Wow. It's a dangerous profession, very masculine profession.
It's very dangerous. Now, my husband loves it. He was in the Navy and he did like special ops, and so I think he's an adrenaline junkie anyway. And my dad, his dad was one also. So it was just kind of one of those things with my dad. He got into it because his dad was doing it, and then my husband got into it because he's seen it as an extension of still being able to do something that was kind of an adrenaline rush. So that's kind of where that goes. And he loves it. You know, it's definitely a different kind of lifestyle. I've told people, like, I've got some girlfriends that their husbands, like, they're younger than me and their husbands are just getting into it. And, you know, they ask me questions. I'm like, I'm not going to lie to you. I mean, it's definitely different. Be prepared to feel like a single parent pretty much a lot, because, you know, I can't tell you the amount of times where we'll be in the middle of dinner and he just gets a call. He's gone. Don't know if it's going to be for a day. Don't know if it's going to be for 6 weeks. You know what I mean? It's just how it goes. And that's the lifestyle. And you've got to be okay with that. And the marriages fail a lot in, you know, with people in this profession. And that's why, you know, it's hard to maintain. What does your wife do?
My wife, her name is Mel. She's super cool. Charming, sweet, patient, willing to teach a man how to type. She works at our children's charter school, so she runs their gardening program. So
that's awesome.
Helps teach gardening, and then it's kind of like this thing where she does teaching part of the time. The other time she works just in different classrooms helping students. So
that's my passion.
Teaching.
No, not my passion. Definitely not my passion.
No, JK. Okay.
Yeah.
Gardening.
No, my passion. Yeah, we have an organic farm, and I love herbs, bees, butterflies, vegetable gardens. Yeah. I actually posted on my personal Facebook page today that we're building out a bigger compost bed, and I just got 2,000 more compost worms in today. I was pretty excited about it. Like, most people were like, "Hey, worms!" And I was like, "Yay, my worms came!" You know, I was like, "Look how cute they are!" And
listen, I love my wife. I really love her, and she really loves to garden, and I don't. Yeah. I am not interested in it whatsoever. In fact, last weekend we rented this 700-pound tiller, so I could dig up half the backyard so she could have more flower beds. And it felt like I had been riding a wild animal all weekend trying to get this thing done. And my whole body hurt. I build garden beds for her, and I pull weeds, and I hate every moment of it. But
that's love, though. That can go in your movie.
I really love her to the point that I will do this for her and no one else. And my son doesn't like it either, and I drag him out there all the time. In fact, I had a post go viral a while ago where, he can understand why I was dragging him out there to help fill garden beds, and he's like, I don't like vegetables, like, why would I care about any of this? Yeah. And I just told him, I was like, dude, this is what love looks like. Love is service, man. Love is a verb, and if you love someone, you got to serve them, and that's what it looks like. And he ended up, the next day, I got a picture from my wife of him working in the yard, unprompted, and for, like a preteen, that's huge.
That is majorly
when
huge. She
asked him, what were you doing out this? He was like, I just love you.
Aww.
And I was like, that's my boy. It was one of those moments where I thought, maybe I'm doing it right.
And that one's not the dud. So you can cross that one off the list.
Today.
Seems like,
Today, not the dud. Tomorrow?
Not the dud, yeah.
I don't know. I don't know.
That's how mine are. It's just, it's funny because I always joke around saying that, out of 7 kids, that the odds are I'm going to majorly screw at least one of them up. And I've got 2 that's the top pick at this moment that I'm not really even sure where to go with. It's like, okay, well, and they also absolutely hate anything to do with like the farm or anything to do with gardening or anything to do with anything that I think is a great idea. And I have to hear the same thing. Why are we doing this? What's the point in this? And I think that's part of growing up, though. I think if you think back, unless you were a good child. I wasn't completely the best child. Anything my parents liked, I completely hated just because they liked it. You know, yeah, I think it's just that like normal rebellion.
Well, so that's the hard part about like raising kids right now. Like, I mean, where else am I going to teach them how to work? You know, I don't have, like when I was a kid, you know, we were next to my grandfather's beef farm. And so they would send me out to work in the beef farm, and I hated it. But I did learn a lot about work and poop and that sort of stuff. And that was good for me in hindsight. Every moment of it, I hate it. So like right now, I teach my son how to do work. Like I make him mow the lawn. You know, like, I mean, we live in the suburbs. I mean, it's rural Oregon, but we're still in a suburb here, and we got this little patch of grass, and I make him cut it. And he's terrible at it. I hope he never becomes a barber, because it's going to be terrible for whoever sits in his barber chair. But he is, you know, it's all I got. I got to teach him how to do work somehow.
Well, and I agree. And I think people are starting to kind of circle back to a lot of those kind of back to your roots type of things, especially right now. I've had a lot of phone calls this week on just that very thing about people reaching out to me because they know that I, you know, farm, and it's not something that I do to make, you know, to monetize majorly. I barely break even at the end of the year. I do it because I love it. And people have reached out to me asking, so how do you can? So with these herbs that you have, you know, how would I grow them? What would I do with them? So, you know, a lot of these people didn't care at all about anything, you know, to do with that. But all of a sudden, with everything that's kind of going on in the world, people are starting to think, well, maybe I need to learn how to do some of these things. And that's what I've always told my kids. And I told them the same thing that I grew up. I learned a lot of stuff from my grandma and my grandpa. I thought it was stupid. You know, I was like, I don't want to do this. What do I want to do this for? I don't care about this. But I'm glad I know it now. And that's what I tell my kids. I'm like, that's fine. When you leave here, you may never ever do this ever again. And that's fine. You don't have to. But if you ever need to, you'll know how to. And that's kind of my mantra with them on teaching them to do everything. You know, whether it's the farm stuff or even like dishes or laundry or whatever, fine. You know, you want to hire somebody to do everything for you. Whenever you move out, you can do that. But while you're here, you're going to at least know how. And there's a lot of people that are kind of going back to that same mentality of, you know, how do I can my food? How do I grow my food? I may not end up needing to, but it would be great to know how to if I have to.
Well, I know if, you know, my wife were to leave me or, you know, heaven forfend, die, and I was left in a situation where I had to grow my own food, I would be right behind her. I would not be eating, unless there's a taco tree or something I can grow. It's not going to be pretty.
Oh, I wish there was a taco tree. That'd be amazing. I love tacos. I keep joking with my kids. I don't know if your kids, during this quarantine, I don't know what happened. I strongly suspect that my kids' school like gave them tapeworms or something before they came home to be quarantined, because that is all they've done from the time they wake up until the time they go to bed is eat. And I know they do not eat 30 meals a day at school. So I'm not sure how they were able to sustain themselves all day until they got home, because it's not happening here. And I told my son the other day, he's just turned 18, April 1st. So he's sadly one of the seniors that are not getting to graduate. But I was like, you're going to be the first one to go. If this like actually goes like full blown, like apocalypse, I was like, you're a goner. I was like, cause you can't even make it an hour. You're done for, you know, if we're like surviving on, you know, like berries and like whatever, he's done for.
Well, we thought about putting like a lock on the pantry and the fridge and then just leaving the kids some vegetables and fruit out, you know, as snacks. But the possibility of cannibalism was really just too high. I didn't want the kids to just go full hawk and eat the dog or each other. So yeah, it's been bad. And it's not like I'm any better either. They should adjust the BMI by the time we get out of this. That would be a good idea.
Yeah. Well, I mean, a lot of people, there's nothing better to do. And one of the things that a lot of people do when they're stuck at home is you just cook. You know, you cook and you try this recipe or that recipe. And then, of course, you got to try it. You got to eat it. So, yeah, that's right. You got your taco tree. I'm living on Captain Crunch right now. Captain Crunch is nasty. No. So what's your favorite cereal? You like Captain Crunch? That's your favorite?
I am technically, I guess I'm a vegetarian, right? I eat very minimal meat. My wife's the same way, but I guess really what I am is a carbitarian, because I'm not eating a lot of vegetables. And
because Captain Crunch isn't vegetarian. Yeah, I wouldn't consider it. When I think vegetarian,
got berries in it, you know.
It's got berry shaped items.
So I do eat an incredible amount of breakfast cereal, and there's so many options, and the consistency is just beautiful. And I regret nothing. I absolutely regret nothing. I'm incredibly regular because of all the fiber.
And spray on vitamins. You get your
so
spray on
many
vitamins.
So many. I'm pretty sure I'm immune to COVID because of all the vitamins I get.
Captain Crunch. That's good marketing. I mean, you might want to contact, the Captain Crunch cereal company and just say, I have not caught COVID. I believe that your cereal is the reason why.
I'll get back to you on that.
Yeah, it's a good idea.
I'm gonna add that to the schedule.
That's a good idea. At this point, you have how many books out other than the one that's getting ready to come out, you said, in October?
Well, yeah, I have the self-published book, which is okay. I don't recommend
What's
a lot
it
of
called?
people buy it. It's called "This Is Why We Can't Have Nice Things."
I have not read that, but I say that a lot.
Yeah, I think a lot of people do. And then I have another book is called "I'm Sorry, Love Your Husband." And that is a book of apologies to my wife, and which I would like to think most people should be able to relate to that. And then I have the book that came out last October, was it November, something like that, and that's Silence is a Scary Sound, and that's just the realities of living with a toddler. That's all toddler talk, and that I think is very, very funny. That's just a very relatable, funny book. And then I have another one coming out in October that's Fatherish, and that's a collection of my fatherly fails.
The Silence is a Scary Sound is the one that I've seen the book cover of, and I've actually got it on my list. I need to go buy it because I would say a lot of it is very relatable. I'm in a couple of, these like parenting groups like on Facebook, and I'll tell you what, some of those people are the most judgmental people. I posted something one day because my daughter just turned 3 in December. She had got into, Sharpie, like I feel like all kids have at one point or another, but like most people were like, yeah, that's so funny. My kids have done that too. And some people are like, how was she able to do that? What was you doing? Was you not watching her? And I'm like, you freaking kidding me? I'm like, she done this in like 3 minutes. I'm like, you're telling me that you're hawk-eyeing your child for every second of the day? It's just funny how parents tend to like attack each other sometimes on stuff.
No, it's not sometimes. It's bad. I mean, women have it way worse than I do.
It's bad.
I know anytime I have something go viral, I just have to kind of buckle down. When I had the post that ended up having Good Morning America come to my house, it was about how I used to blame my wife for our messy house, and we had a long conversation. This was early in our marriage. And she basically, right after I had kids, she basically said, I could, focus on making sure our house is perfect, or I could focus on helping our kids' development. And I'd rather focus on this time with the kids. And I started to realize that we had a messy house, but we had these incredibly wonderful, well-developed kids. And what was my priority? And this, of course, took off. And I got the craziest messages, not only from people just being straight up abusive, but just like crazy stuff like, do you got rats in your house? It's like, no, I don't think so. I had a radio station like call me live, somehow call my number. I started to realize I should not pick up the phone when I don't know the number during these times. I had a post go crazy once about how I would put my wild child, the honey badger, on a leash to keep her from running into traffic, because that's what she would do. She just did not care. Oh my goodness. I've never had so much online shaming, and it was just insane the way people reacted to that. And 90% of them were non-parents.
Yeah. That's my favorite.
Not understand that at all. Or they're comparing it to their own child. And if you've got a relatively mild child, you probably, it's situational, but holy smokes, man, parents online are the worst. It's rough. I do a lot of monitoring. I do a lot of deleting comments, blocking people, because I just can't. And it feels great. It feels great to block them. It feels like I put tape over their mouth.
Yeah. You're singing another one bites the dust the whole time.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah, that's, they're completely ruthless. And I had somebody, I posted something else one day, again, just joking. I had a glass of wine, and I was joking around that was my, daily dose of vitamins to deal with my kids' bullcrap for the day, which was a joke. I don't drink wine to deal with my kids' bullcrap. I do enjoy a glass of wine here or there, and it's a joke that it's to deal with the kids' bullcrap, but it's funny and relatable. And if that's how I choose to unwind, that's how I choose to unwind sometimes. Well, somebody lit me up and was sitting there talking about how, you shouldn't make the kids feel bad that you have to drink a glass of wine. I'm like, well, first of all, I'm not saying it to my kids. I'm putting it on here as a joke. And, second of all, the lady didn't even have any kids. I was like,
yeah,
yes, let's shout down from your high horse of not even knowing what this is like. I mean, I love my kids with all my heart. I would lay down and die for each and every one of them, but they drive me crazy and I want to pinch their heads off a lot of times a day. And, I think it's that a lot of people can't realize that it can be both, that you have to like pick one or the other. And, I think that's just ludicrous because it's the same thing with my husband. I love my husband with all my heart, but I want to pinch his head off sometimes too. It's just,
that's what I mean. I think that so much of love is showing up every day and dealing with your kids and just loving them even when they drive you crazy. I mean, that's kind of like the premise of this next book's coming out. Like, if you can come at something every day and feel like you're failing at it and occasionally get it right, but you just keep trying every day, that's probably one of the more purest forms of love I can think of. And that's really what parenting looks like, is just trying to come in every day at it and love your kids and try and get it right.
And you have to do them all differently. You cannot parent children the same. I mean, like I said, I have 7 and I cannot parent none of them the same way. And it just does not work. And my oldest, like I said, she's moved out and she's even got her own baby now. And her husband, they even have made comments about, how I'm parenting some of my younger kids. And she's like, you would have never with me. I'm like, listen, you were my first one. I was like, you were a guinea pig child. I was like, you were, yeah, I'm like, I had no idea what I was doing. I only kind of know now, and that I had no idea. I was like, so it's funny because you see some of the stuff that talks about like helicopter parenting. And I sadly will admit that I was that mom, because I was terrified of her getting hurt or me missing something or whatever for her early years. I was that mom. And I didn't even realize it until many years and more kids later, to where I just couldn't helicopter them at that point. There was no way to, that I realized how stupid it actually was anyway. Because it was just like, I wasn't allowing her to even make the mistakes. I wasn't allowing her to kind of, try these things out because I was just so terrified of the what ifs. And so I am a lot more lax on my parenting style now. And I don't know if that's right or wrong. I guess I'll have to let you know in a few years. But it seems like, I feel like anyway, that is a little bit better approach, that I don't completely helicopter them. I still give them parameters, but I allow them to make the mistake. I'll say, no, don't do that because of this. And then they do it. I'm like, I told you not to. I told you not to. And that was why, which obviously there are major things you wouldn't let them do. But, for the most part, I do think that that's how kids learn. Like, well, that's how we learn. It's how people learn.
Yeah. I mean, I know that there is a level of helicopter parenting that I think is socially mandated right now.
Yeah.
And I got mixed feelings with that. I wrote about this in the Washington Post a while back, but, we watched the Goonies with my kids once. And there was this point in the movie where, the kids are at the like old abandoned restaurant and the like criminals are there.
Yeah.
And my son looked over at me and he's like, where are their parents? And the thought of just getting on your bike and riding into the woods like that, like you would in the 80s, and going and looking for adventure and finding a pirate treasure map, was just unheard of to him. And it would kind of left me with this feeling like, I mean, we manage so much of their time and we shuttle them and where they need to go. But at the same time, like, I don't know, it makes me wonder what adventures they're losing. I learned a lot from getting into trouble and finding my way out of it. I remember going swimming at a rope swing down the street from my house because that was what we did. We were the poor kids and we couldn't go to the water park. So we go to the rope swing and we get in fights and we would have, failed love romance attempts and kids would almost drown. And we learned a lot about getting in trouble and getting out. And I don't know what we're missing. Yeah, I don't know what we're going to miss because of that. But it's kind of what's expected now. I mean, if I let my kid go down to the river and play, I don't know. I'll probably get arrested.
Oh, yeah. Well, it is. And I think in so many ways, I think it's kind of the rite of passage. But like you said, it's socially unacceptable now. So we have to not allow them at a younger age. And I really think that's a disservice on them in so many ways. And one of those is that they're still going to try those things out, but it's not going to be, the 10-year-old trying out something that's a lot less risky. It's going to be, the 18, 19-year-old that's never really tried anything that has the opportunity to try way worse things. And that's kind of my fear on, kind of not allow, we live out in the middle of nowhere. So I do have the ability within parameters, kind of let them run around the farm some. You know, they know, okay, you're not allowed to go near the pond. You're not allowed to go into the barn. You're not allowed to go near the road. You know, they have their rules. But other than that, they can pretty much roam the property. I'll allow them to do that. And I like that. Before, whenever my older kids were younger, you know, I lived in subdivisions and stuff like that. And I didn't allow that. You know, I can remember when my oldest one was little, I would, you know, freak out and not even let her go on the sidewalk right in front of her house because I was just like terrified that like somehow some car would, you know, veer off of the road and hit her on the sidewalk. And all she wanted to do was sit on the sidewalk and draw a sidewalk chalk, you know? So I think sometimes we can try to overparent, and I love social media and I hate social media. And I think that's part of the issues is that there's so much access for people to kind of speak into stuff that we already speak to ourselves anyway. And we're kind of our own worst critics sometimes on, oh, I shouldn't have done that, or I should have done that better, or I should have done more of that and less of that. And, you know, when we put our stuff on social media, you know, we have all these people that are giving, you know, these opinions, and that can sometimes kind of feed into our own fears and worries, I think, if we allow it.
Yeah, definitely. Without a doubt.
I'd like to ask my guests, if you could go back and tell yourself, you know, your younger self, you know, 3 things, what would it be? Just kind of like takeaways.
How far back are we going here, Maria?
However far you want to go. You know, just kind of like if you could, like anything that would be something that would be valuable to your life. Like if you could go back and say, you know, like with me, one of my things is, you know, stop trying to wear a mask. You know, one of the things I talk about on here a lot is the fact that I worked in corporate America for a while. And, you know, I always felt like I had to live this double life, you know, that I was my crazy, weird personality with definitely not the perfect house, you know, definitely not the perfect, because my house is messy all the time too, because I've got 1,000 kids, and, you know, definitely not the perfect marriage. I mean, I don't even think that exists. And, you know, my kids were not always the most well behaved, and, you know, just all these things, but I had to like play this game where, and as everybody does it, I found out, and that's kind of where this podcast kind of started was, you know, you go to a business meeting or a, you know, networking event or something, and people are like, oh, how's business? And everybody's like, business is great. And how's the family? Family's fabulous. But you've already heard from somebody else that they're in the middle of a divorce and they're not making payroll. That we, like in the business world, a lot of times what happens is people feel like they have to wear this mask. And I got tired of it. I got exhausted with wearing this mask. So I just stopped. And I thought the day that I stopped, I thought, okay, well, I had already started my own business by then. So I thought, I'm not going to get any more clients. I'm not going to work again. And the funny thing was, the more raw and real that I was, my business actually improved because I was gaining clients that were more ideal for me. You know, I was gaining people on a deeper level and a more trusted level because I was showing up as sincere. So that would be one of the things I would tell myself. So I don't know that I like to ask people that, just because people that are listening, you never know kind of what's going on in their life right now. And sometimes just being able to hear that, you know, what you would tell yourself type of thing can kind of speak to somebody.
Yeah, I mean, I think the one thing that I would tell myself, I don't know if I have 3 things.
Well, you don't have to say
3 things seems like too much. But the one thing I would tell myself, and this is something I need to tell myself every day, is that I'm not failing. I always feel like I'm failing. I don't know why. I felt that way for a long time. But, you know, I was chatting with a good friend of mine that I went to grad school with, and she was saying, you know, when we were in college, if I could see where I am now as far as having published books and, you know, published in major publications and different things, you know, you'd be ecstatic. And yet I still, even now, you know, I chip away at my successes based on, you know, I don't sell enough books, or, you know, I got a couple of rejections, or I'm not able to do this full time. I chip away at myself all the time, and I need to knock it off. And I would love to go back to my former self, and at least when this started, you know, and say, hey man, you're not failing, you know, you're just on the road.
I think that's actually I think we're our own worst enemies on that as well, because I think we set these goals up for ourselves. There's nothing wrong with goals. I think goals are fabulous, but nobody says you have to really reach those goals. And if you don't, what happens? You know what I mean? So it's like sometimes we set these goals and it's like, well, I need to, like, I do it to myself. You know, I want to, you know, get 10 new clients this week. Okay. And if I get it, great. And if I don't, then what? what happens? Well, nothing happens. I just didn't. And, and a lot of times if we don't meet that goal, then we beat ourselves up for the next 2 or 3 weeks. So we actually just undermined and probably didn't get the clients we would have got because we're too busy beating ourselves up. You know what I mean?
Sure.
All right. Well, I will go ahead and wrap this up. I really enjoyed having you on today, and I definitely recommend following him on Instagram. I follow him on Instagram. He cracks me up on a regular basis. So,
that's comforting.
Yeah. So, and I'm not one of those that leaves the nasty comments, so don't delete me.
Bless you, Maria. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. All right.
Tell 'em not today. Swerving on these chickens, cluck out my lane. I'm a boss. Out my way. I just do every little thing that I say. I'm the freaking greatest. I'm the rage they exclamated. LA Times, I stay on page 6. I'm even your favorite's favorite. You better tell 'em who's the boss, me.